Alright, so the next season of Solo Raid is upon us already, and I wanted to take this event as an opportunity to explore team building and how I tackle it. There's a lot of people that play NIKKE and compete in Solo Raid that have access to way more units than I do, with way more resources invested into them. So I'm not always in a position to look at the top performers and Control-C, Control-V their team compositions. But that's okay, because I do enjoy the puzzle of making 5 different teams with the units that I have. When I get all 5 teams built and the pieces all click together, it feels really satisfying knowing that I made the absolute best of the units that I had available. When I'm actually building the teams, I play around with a lot of different ideas and test them in the shooting range. And even after that, I usually have to make adjustments for the actual solo raid fight. But this process helps me pick out my best performing units and gives me a good baseline to start with. I'm not going to show that entire process in this video. It's just going to be the teams, why they work together, and why I organize them the way that I did. So, the upcoming solo raid will be an electric code, which means iron code NIKKEs will have an advantage and water code NIKKEs will be disadvantaged. The very first thing I like to do when building my 5 teams is organizing all of my core support units, whether they be solo units or duos. I know 100% without a doubt I will be using Crown, the Maid duo, the Idol duo, and for this raid, Treasure Miranda. I'm also going to put Bunny Aid and Velvet into Team 5. That's 5 sets of supports for my 5 different teams. Now before I move on, I know that Treasure Miranda needs a CDR unit on her team because she doesn't supply it herself. This is an easy fix. I can slot in Summer Helm. She's Iron Code, Burst 2, provides CDR, increases damage taken on the enemy, and does respectable DPS on her own. If you're following along and you don't have Summer Helm, then don't worry about it because I'll revisit that issue later. I'm going to start with Crown's team, so this will be Team 1. I'm going to slot in Rappy Red Hood and Summer Cinderella. They're both Iron Code machine gun units that love the reload speed that Crown offers. I'm also going to slot in Treasure Privity as the off burst, because she provides even more reload speed as well as some other minor buffs, but most importantly, a damage taken increase to the enemies. Now before I go any further, in regards to Crown, there's something here that I want to talk about. Every single time I do a video with Crown in any of my team compositions and I don't have a healer with her, or I happen to be using Neuda, someone always comments about how I'm not maximizing Crown's skill 2, or did I know that Neuda's heal share doesn't count as recovery for Crown? Yes, I am aware of it. I'm slotting Privity here anyways. Moving on. That just leaves us with a burst 1 slot. I can technically use Rappy Red Hood as a burst 1 here, but I think that since she's the strong element for this fight, it will be better to use her as a burst 3. And I also don't have that many Iron Burst 3 units to use anyways. I'm going to use Leader here for now since the massive attack buff is especially good for Summer Cinderella, and I should have enough burst generation from Summer Cinderella and 2 more machine gun units as well. If I happen to need healing in this team, I will use Naga instead of Privity, and the damage difference will be very negligible. So the first team is done. It has all the buffs it needs to do high damage, it has CDR, it has survivability with Crown's Burst, plenty of burst generation, and most importantly, tons of reload speed. Now it's time for the second team. Right now, I have Maid Mast and Maid Anchor. This is a high value duo that gives lots of generally useful offensive buffs with some healing as well. I'm going to put Raven in this team and Cinderella. Why these two? Well, Raven works best here when considering the remaining support choices that she can be paired with, and I need an iron unit to deal with any immunity phases. Having Raven as the only option for those phases may not work out, but I do have Eve on the bench if I need her. I used Cinderella here because I have much more invested into her than Eve, and the team did a lot more damage because of it. Finally, the burst generation of this team is pretty poor, so I'm slotting Siren as my burst 1. Unfortunately, this team isn't stacking machine guns, so Siren's burst generation won't be optimal. but it should be good enough when paired with Maid Mast. It also shouldn't be too much of an issue since Cinderella only needs a few seconds to do all of her front-loaded burst skill damage. So if I end up with a really short burst window at the end of a fight, it shouldn't matter too much in the grand scheme of things. Now, on to Team 3, where I have the Idol duo slotted. I have Red Hood and Summer Marciana remaining for Iron DPS choices, and I don't particularly like using either of them in this team. So I'm going to put Neo Neon in here with Liberalio to boost her charge speed. This is a very strong neutral bossing combo, and I've been using it a lot. But one thing I really dislike about Neo Neon is that you need optimal burst generation to make sure she gets those 13 or 14 full duration bursts. So I'm slotting Star Anise here for her excellent burst generation. The Idol duo and Star Anise boost projectile explosion damage, which Star Anise and Neo Neon benefit from greatly. I only have Mint as an iron unit, but she should do just fine for breaking any immunity phases. Team 4 is the Treasure Miranda composition with Summer Helm. If you don't have Summer Helm, then someone like D-Killer Wife, Siren, or Rouge would be good choices for a CDR unit. I'm going to put Neuda and Summer Marciana on this team to receive the buffs from Miranda. Neuda will get the guaranteed crit. I wanted to avoid putting Summer Marciana on a team with lots of attack buffs since she already has so much, and other units could make more use of them. So, she works just fine here, receiving crit buffs from Miranda, and she of course likes the huge damage taken debuff that Summer Helm applies. This just leaves one problem left to solve: burst generation. I have Treasure Helm here for just that reason, and she works as my second burst 3. And if there's any particularly high damage phases I have to sustain through, then Helm will just completely trivialize it. Now on to our last team. Team 5 has Bunny Aid and Velvet, and I have two perfectly good sniper units with Pierce to use here. Red Hood is an iron coat that does good DPS, and Snow White Heavy Arms does crazy damage even as the weak element, and she'll give the team some much needed burst generation. This team doesn't have any sustain, so I'm going to use Treasure Morin as the burst 1 in hopes that her taunt and self-healing is enough for the upcoming fight. If it isn't, then I have Rouge on the bench, and I pray that will be enough healing to sustain me. If I have to replace Privity with Naga in Team 1, then Velvet will be replaced with Privity here. And there you have it, my baseline 5 teams for the upcoming solo raid. Every team has an iron unit to deal with immunities, the supports are paired with optimal DPS units so that none of their buffs are wasted, every team has some sustain, which I hope is enough for the fight, and every team has someone providing a large chunk of burst generation to keep the rotations as fast as possible. Some units that I wanted to use but they just didn't work out were Takina and Chisato. Takina does a lot of damage on her own, but she's really only worth using if she has a true damage DPS to buff, like Chisato. I have virtually nothing invested into Chisato, and after doing some last minute investments, I didn't have enough to spare for her. Anyways guys, I hope this video helped give you some ideas for the upcoming solo raid, or how to put together your own teams for any content you may be doing. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy my content. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!